Thank you for the question. It's a very thoughtful and a good question. And from the beginning, we knew that it would be very important to us to stay as close to Tolkien as possible. We started every single day of our writer's room reading a quote from Tolkien, spending time in the text, thinking about it, talking about it, trying to make sure we were staying in tune with it. At the same time, we knew that in any adaptation, there's going to be things you need to do to translate one medium, in this case appendices and notes and scattered details through songs and poems, into one cohesive storyline. So we knew we were going to need to compress time. That was one of the first big licenses we took, to take thousands of years of story and to find a way to tell it as sort of one story arc. And in doing that, we spoke with the Tolkien estate, worked very closely with Simon Tolkien, who is J.R.R. Tolkien's grandson. And we made sure this was something that the Tolkien estate was comfortable with. And we also worked with Tolkien scholars that are world-renowned scholars. Tom Shippey, who holds Tolkien's chair at Oxford, among other scholars. We worked with from the beginning to say, like, as we're adapting and as we're expanding upon Tolkien's legendarium, we wanted to make sure we were doing it in as respectful a way and also as Tolkienian a way as possible. And so that was our ambition from the beginning, and we've tried to stay very true to that. We felt an enormous amount of pressure, but mostly internally from ourselves. This material means so much to us. It's something I was introduced to in my early 20s. Patrick was introduced to it as a child, and we've both done the deep dive on it since then. And these aren't just stories for us. These are things that are integrated with our hearts and really with our souls. I reach for Tolkien when friends die and I need to write a eulogy. I'll quote Tolkien. My own father's eulogy, I quoted Tolkien. When my son was born, his birth announcement went out in both English and in Elvish. And so these aren't just stories; these are really part of us. And so we wanted to get it right, and every day, we got up. Patrick and I. He and I have been working together for 25 years. So for us, this collaboration started as really kids. And this is a childhood dream now that has come true in the biggest way we could have ever imagined. So the pressure we put on ourselves to make sure that we did it justice was enormous. So thank you. That's an excellent question. So Tolkien himself spoke a lot about the idea of applicability. He never wanted to make anything that was allegorical, in that he didn't want you to be able to say, like, oh, well, clearly this character represents that politician, or this people is that society, or any of those kind of things, because that sort of makes it limited. But he wanted to tell tales that would be timeless and applicable to any people in any time. And so the themes of Tolkien are as relevant today as ever, which are underdogs, people like Patrick and I who, had never run a show before, but were given the ring and given the fate of Middle Earth to walk from the Shire to Mordor with. It's themes of friendship, being able to conquer great evils. It's the story of good and evil and that battle, the corrupting nature of power. What happens when a person or a being suddenly finds itself in possession of this powerful item? What happens to them? What happens to that people? And so these are stories that really resonate across times. And in the story of Numenor, it's also what happens when there's factionalization in a society and people start to divide into these groups that are fighting with each other. Even powerful societies, can face their ruin when they don't know how to figure out how to integrate all the different voices within them. So these are stories that resonated when Tolkien wrote them, and they resonate today, and I think and hope they'll resonate for hundreds of years to come. It's a very, very, very good question, and I'm not known for my brevity, so give me a second to think about that. Determination and hope. Thank you, and I think you mean Patrick, right? My co-writer Patrick?
Right.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, the two of us met when we were 15, 16 years old in high school, writing plays together. And so for us, before this was a job, it was just two kids getting together, telling stories. And that was the nature of our friendship from the beginning. So we worked in all kinds of different genres. We tried writing comedies and romances and action movies and big historical epics and science fiction, as you mentioned, Star Trek, or various fantasy things. And really we find that we love these big worlds that deal with these big questions, big themes, and have something heightened about them. Because there's something that happens when you enter a special world, whether it's a science fiction world or a fantasy world. Your guard goes down, and some of your cynicism can disappear, and you're able to just meet these characters in these larger than life situations, but that can reflect your own life experiences. I mean, there's a reason why people go back to Tolkien again and again. I said my experience is like Frodo being given the ring, because I think anyone who is dealing with something that is bigger than them, that feels, that they feel unprepared to completely have the strength to be able to tackle, can find themselves in that story of Frodo, or countless other stories sort of across Tolkien's legendarium. So for us, working together it gave us this shared language and a shared toolbox to be able to approach this monumental undertaking. And it's taken all the skills and abilities that we've developed over multiple decades working together to even begin to chip away at this. And then there were all kinds of skills we didn't possess that we had to go and build a fellowship around us. And we brought in Lindsay Weber, who's our executive producer, amazingly talented, and then she helped us build out this entire fellowship of artists and collaborators who were able to realize the vision for Middle Earth at the highest possible level. And it's been the undertaking of a lifetime. For sure, yes, and any kind of adaptation, it's going to be a challenge, because you're going to have to figure out, what are you going to bring in, what are you going to alter, Tolkien wrote thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of Middle Earth. So, some would maybe wish for sort of documentary Middle Earth, where you could, just kind of go in and make a historical rendering that was, perfectly faithful to every moment, and we knew that wasn't going to be possible, because we knew that you needed to be able to tell one story in this new streaming format. And really, what's cool about the modern streaming format is it's not really television, and it's not really movies either. It's this kind of new thing that takes the best of both worlds, right? Where you get the production values and the scope and the scale of blockbuster filmmaking, where you can have huge battles and creatures and armies and amazing vistas and landscapes and costumes that have been built in the best possible way. So all of that you get from blockbuster filmmaking, but then you also get the depth of long-form serialized storytelling, and Tolkien requires both. I don't think that a story like this could have been told even 10 years ago, certainly not 20 years ago, because you're doing this long period of history, and these peoples that have such depth in their mythology, in their cultures, in their histories. And so a 50-hour canvas like this gives us the opportunity to get to know those characters really, really well, so that when they're in the jeopardy of the big armies and creatures, you care about them, because you didn't just spend an hour with them or 2 hours with them, you've spent dozens of hours with them, and so their fates, you're hopefully wrapped around the axle, seeing what's going to happen. I mean, we love Middle Earth. We've worked on various kinds of other properties before, and if we were going to dive into a television, you work on a movie, you're on the film as a writer for 6 months, sometimes a year, maybe at the most 2 years, sort of as it's going through. But this was something we knew that it was like getting married, and we said we're going to spend much of our life on this project, and so we were very careful looking at all the various different kinds of properties that were out there, and then when the opportunity to work in Middle Earth came around, we had a friend who was working at Amazon who they were hearing pitches from dozens of writers. He said, "Hey, would you like to come in and offer a pitch?" We said, "To Middle Earth? Yes, please, now, thank you." And so we raised our hands, long and loud. And at first we were told dozens of writers, maybe like 50 writers. Very slowly it went from that to that to that. And when they finally told us that we had gotten the job, it was just like one of those moments when there's everything that came before in your life, and then there's everything that comes after, and that's just a moment where everything changes. But hold on, and I want to finish answering your question even better, sorry. Really, and why Middle Earth? It's because Middle Earth is special. There's a special feeling people have about Middle Earth. People go there for a different reason than, entertainment is entertainment. People love to be entertained in all kinds of different places, but Middle Earth can do something more than just entertain you. It can also inspire you, and it can bring hope. And that's a thing that our world needs today. That's an excellent question. Thank you. And in some ways, one challenging thing was that we wanted this to be something that was accessible for everyone. It is so complex that you could just do something that was for superfans. But we wanted this to be something that the superfans would be able to really get into. And so in every frame, hopefully there's something that you can freeze frame and say like, oh wow, look at the Elvish that's etched on that sword hilt, and oh that it's a poem from the First Age, or there's things like that all over the show where if you are that superfan, you'll have all those fun things to discover and explore. But also, we wanted to say, like, look, if you've never seen the movies before, you've never read the books, you've never had any contact with Tolkien, you're walking in off the street, you could instantly get into this because of the human drama, and human, but also elven and dwarven, and but the emotional drama at the core of this series. So really, that was one of the big challenges, was to make something that was accessible for everyone, because we want the show to be able to bring people together. Then a second challenge, I would say, is just the technical aspects of building Middle-earth. This isn't just one world, it's 6 worlds just in the first season alone. We're going places people have never gone before, and visualizing, as you said, Numenor, which we knew is, fans have been excited to see this for such a long time, and we knew we had to get it right. So we had to bring in some of the best artists from around the world, and there's nowhere where you can go and just sort of like buy a costume off the shelf and put it on for Middle-earth. You have to design every single thing. In some case, every single leaf had to be designed. So wanting to make sure that we got it right and were able to do it in a way that did Middle-earth justice was a challenge, but also an exciting thing to take on from the word go. So my ignorance is going to come out here in that I have not spent a lot of time in Indian mythology. I've spent a lot of time studying world mythology in general, and my mom read to me from various world myths as I was growing up. I have not spent much time in Indian myths, so I would be ignorant if I was speaking about that. But being here and spending time amongst people in these last couple of days has made me excited to be able to go and dive in and do a much deeper dive.
Thank you.
So thank you for that.